In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. The Abracast. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hello everybody, this is the Abracast. I'm John speaking. Tonight we're going to be talking about, we're following on the heels of the Book of the Law episode, and we're going to be doing Liber 1, Liber 2, and Liber 3 all at one time. So in the Book of the Law, Crowley says, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Starting with Liber 2 kind of is him trying to explain it, and I'm going to get to that more in a little bit. And then Liber 3 just deals with, so Liber 2 is basically this guy, the Master Therion, and he's like, look, whoa. Do what thou wilt does not mean do whatever you want. Right? Like the way I kind of think about it is like if you walked into like a 9th grade gym class and you were like, look, just go do whatever you want. You know, you're going to have like everybody going to do kind of like their own thing. It's going to be mass chaos. And so do what thou wilt will be the whole of the law. In Liber 3, he goes on to kind of explain that, well, in Liber 2, he says, do what thou wilt doesn't mean do whatever you want. And then in Liber 3, he starts talking about how to kind of marshal your will. Right? So, we're just going to jump right into this. So I want to take a look at these like I'm looking at these currently these days from a sort of heavy metal self-help standpoint. I mentioned on the show before how it is hard for me to understand. It's hard for me to understand how the new age hippie or like these fucking neo hippie-ish movements, you know, the coexist crowd took over magic. And I say that because in my reading and in my studying of this material, I find a hardcore message of radical responsibility. You know, self-reliance. So I'm on this path in my personal life where I found myself drawn back to these works to kind of take another look at them. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're doing tonight. So if you're playing along at home, now is the time to summon your vessel of the art and raise it high into the sky. And here is to my Patreon and Subscribe Star supporters without whom this show would not be possible. Here is to you. Liber 1. 1 is the Magus twain his forces for his weapons. These are the 7 spirits of unrighteousness, 7 virtues of evil. Thus is the art and the craft of the Magus but glamour, and how shall he destroy himself? Yet the Magus hath power upon the mother, both directly through love, and the Magus is love, and bindeth together that and this in his conjuration. And in the beginning doth the Magus speak the truth, and send forth illusion and falsehood to enslave the soul. Yet therein is the mystery of redemption. By his wisdom made he the worlds, and the world, that is, God, is none other than he. How then shall he end his speech with silence? For he is speech. He is the first and the last, and how shall he cease to number himself? By a Magus is this writing made known through the mind of the Magister. The one uttereth clearly, and the other understandeth, yet the word is falsehood, and the understanding darkness, and this saying is of all truth. Nevertheless, it was written, for there be times of darkness, and this as a lamp therein. And with the wand createth he, and with the cup preserveth he, and with the dagger destroyeth he, and with the coin redeemeth he. His weapons fulfill the wheel, and on what axle that turneth is not known unto him. For all these actions must he create before the curse of his grade is uplifted from him, before he attain to that which existeth without form. And if at this time he be manifested upon earth as a man, and therefore is this present writing, let this be his method, that this curse of his grade and the burden of his attainment be uplifted from him. And let him beware of abstinence from action, for the curse of his grade is that he must speak truth, that the falsehood thereof may enslave the souls of men, and let them utter that without fear, that the law may be fulfilled, and in accordance with his original nature will that law be sharpened, so that one may declare gentleness and quietness, being a Hindu, and another fierceness and servility, being the Jew, and yet another ardor and manliness, being an Arab, and yet this matter touches the mystery of incarnation. It is not here to be declared. Now, the grade of the Magister teacheth the mystery of sorrow, and the grade of the Magus, the mystery of change, and the grade of Episimus, the mystery of selflessness, which is called also the mystery of Pan. Let the Magus then contemplate each in turn, raising it to the ultimate power of infinity, wherein sorrow is joy, and change is stability, and selflessness is self. For the interplay of parts hath no action upon the whole. And this contemplation shall be performed not by a simple meditation, how much less than by reason, but by the method which shall have been given unto him in his initiation to the grade, following which method it shall be easy for him to combine that trinity from its elements, and further to combine Sat Chit Anada and love, light, life, 3 by 3 into 9 that are one, in which meditation success shall be that which is first adumbrated to him in the grade of practices, which reflecteth Mercury into the lowest world. In Liber 27, quote, here is nothing under its 3 forms, unquote. And this is the opening of the grade of Ispismus, and by the Buddhists it is called the Trans Narada Sampate. And woe, 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 yea, woe, and again, woe, 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 unto 7 times be his that preacheth not his law to men, and woe also be unto him that refresheth the curse of the grade of the Magus, and the burden of attainment thereof. And in the word chaos, let the book be sealed. Yea, let the book be sealed. All right, so remember, the book of the law says, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. So Liber 2, here we're moving into Liber 2, which is the message of the Master Therion, where he goes, this is actually just, it's just Crowley. He's just using a different name, but this is him trying to, I think it's him trying to kind of explain himself, right? No, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. The word of the law is Thelema. Thelema means will. The key to this message is the word will. The first obvious meaning of this law is confirmed by antithesis. The word of sin is restriction. Again, thou hast no right to do thy will. Do that and no other shall say nay, for pure will, unassuaged of purpose, delivered from the lust of result, is every way perfect. Take this carefully. It seems to imply a theory that if every man and every woman did his and her will, the true will, there would be no clashing. Every man and every woman is a star, and each star moves in its appointed path without interference. There is plenty of room for all. It is only disorder that creates confusion. From these considerations, it should be clear that do what thou wilt does not mean do what you like. It is an apotheosis of freedom, but it is also the strictest possible bond. Do what thou wilt, then do nothing else. Let nothing deflect thee from that austere and holy task. Liberty is absolute to do thy will, but seek to do any other thing whatever, and instantly obstacles must arise. Every act that is not in definite course of that one orbit is erratic. It's a hindrance. Will must not be two, but one. Note further that this will not only be pure, that is single, as explained above, but also unassuaged of purpose. This strange phrase must give us pause. It may mean that any purpose in the will would damp it. Clearly, the lust of result is a thing from which it must be delivered. But there is a phrase also be interpreted as if it read, quote, with purposeful assuaged, unquote. But with the phrase may also be interpreted as if read, quote, with purpose unassuaged, unquote. With tireless energy, the conception is, therefore, of an eternal motion. But the phrase may also be interpreted as if it read, quote, with purpose unassuaged, unquote, with tireless energy. The conception is, therefore, of an eternal motion, infinite and unalterable. It is nirvana, the only dynamic instead of static. And this comes to the same thing in the end. Obvious practical task of the magician is then to discover what his will really is, so that he may do it in this manner. And he can best accomplish this by the practices of Liber B, or such others as may from one time or another be appointed. Thou must first find out what is thy will. 2, do that will with a one-pointedness, detachment, and peace. Then, and then only, art thou in harmony with the movement of things thy will, part of, and therefore equal to, the will of God. And since the will is but the dynamic aspect of the self, and since two different selves could not possess identical wills, then, if thy will be God's will, thou art that. There is but one other word to explain. Elsewhere it is written, surely of our great comfort, quote, love is the law, love under will. This is to be taken as a meaning that while will is the law, the nature of that will is love. But this love is, as it were, a byproduct of that will. It does not contradict or supersede that will, and if apparent contradiction should arise in any crisis, it is the will that will guide us. All right. Lo, while in the book of the law is much of love, there is no word of sentimentality. Hate itself is almost like love. As brothers fight, aye. All the manly races of the world would understand this. The love of Liber Legis is always bold, virile, and orgiastic. There is a delicacy, but it is the delicacy of strength. Mighty and terrible and glorious as it is, however, it is but the pennon upon the sacred lance of will. The dam-ascended inscription upon the swords of the knight monks of Thelema. Love is the law, love under will. Okay, so how do we sharpen that lance of the will? We're going to move on to Liber 3, vel Jugorum. Behold the yoke upon the neck of the oxen. It is not thereby that the field shall be plowed. The yoke is heavy and joineth together them that are separate. Glory to Nuit and to Hodit and to him that hath given us the symbol of the rosy cross. Glory unto the Lord of the word Abracadabra, and glory unto him that hath given us the symbol of the Ankh and of the cross within the circle. 3 are the beasts whereupon thou must plow the field, the unicorn, the horse, and the ox. and these shall yoke in a triple yoke that is governed by one whip. Now these beasts run wildly upon the earths, and are not easily obedient to man. Nothing shall be said here of Cerberus, the great beast of hell. That is every one of these, and all of these, even as Athanasius hath foreshadowed, for this matter is not of Tipperath without, but Tipperath within. The unicorn is speech. Man, rule thy speech. How else shalt thou master the sun and answer the magician at the right hand of the gateway of the crown? Here are practices. Each may last for 1 week. All right, here we go. Avoid using some common word such as and or the or but, and use a paraphrase. Avoid using some letter of the alphabet such as T or S or M. Use a paraphrase. Avoid using the pronouns and adjectives of the first person. Use a paraphrase. Of thine own ingenium devise otherwise. On the occasion that thou betrayed into saying that thou art sworn to avoid, cut thyself sharply on the wrist or forearm with a razor, even as thou shouldest beat a disobedient dog, feareth not the unicorn, the claws and teeth of the lion. Thine arm then serveth thee both as a warning and for a record. Thou shalt write down thy daily progress in these practices until thou art perfectly vigilant at all times over the least word that slippeth from thy tongue. Thus bind thyself, and thou shalt be forever free. Okay, so this is one of these kind of experiments. I did this. I used to call it the Liber 3 challenge. And the thing that I got out of the practical usage of this, so most modern day Thelemites, I don't think they actually slash their arm. They rubber band themselves. So they have a rubber band around their wrist, and whenever they fuck up, they snap themselves with this rubber band. So when I was first tackling this material, I was like, fuck that rubber band. So if you go back through my Instagram, you can see because I would do the slash and then I would take a picture and post it. And the reason I did that, some people were like, this is a cry for help. And some people were like, that's bullshit, fake blood or whatever. But the reason that I did this is because after just walking around with these slashes on my arm for a little bit, like he says here, thine arm then serveth thee both for a warning and for a record. I think one of the ingenious things that this is it's also about, because people see your arm with a bunch of slashes on it, and invariably they go, bro, what is wrong with your arm? And you're gonna be like, well, have you ever heard of this guy named Aleister Crowley? He was the beast. He was the wickedest man in the world. Anyhow, he told me that whenever I said a word that I swore not to say, I should slash myself. And people look at you like you're retarded, right? So I believe that that's part of the the warning, and the record is also a little bit of shaming in there as well. Anyhow, it worked for me, by the way. X-Acto knives work every time. Okay, part 2. The horse is action. Man, rule thy action. How else shalt thou master the father and answer the fool at the left hand of the gateway of the crown. Here are practices. Each may last for 1 week or more. Avoid lifting the left arm above the waist. Avoid crossing the legs of thine own ingenuum, devise others. All right, so the first one was talking about your preciseness of speech. This one is about your restriction of motion. On each occasion thou art betrayed into doing that thou sworn to avoid, cut thyself sharply upon the wrist or forearm with a razor and or an X-Acto knife. Even if thou shouldest beat a disobedient dog, feareth not the horse the teeth of the camel. Thine arm then serveth thee both as a warning and for a record. Thou shalt write down thy daily progress in these practices until thou art perfectly vigilant at all times over the least action that slippeth from the least of thy fingers. Thus bind thyself, and thou shalt be free. Thus bind thyself, and thou shalt be forever free. So I think the metaphor that he used at the beginning of this about the unicorn, the horse, and the ox all being yoked, all three of the yokes being connected, and all three of the animals being controlled by one whip. I think it's a brilliant metaphor for this honing of one's will, right? The whip is the will, and the three animals are your, I guess, potential. Your potential. Okay, on to 3. The ox is thought. Man, rule thy thought. How else shall thou master the Holy Spirit? And the answer, the high priestess in the middle gateway of the crown. All this middle gateway, right gateway, left gateway, the fool in the left gateway of the crown. This is all, besides tarot card business, it's all Kabbalah business. Here are practices, each may last for a week or more. Avoid thinking of a definite subject and all things connected with it, and let that subject be one which commonly occupies much of thy thought, and being frequently stimulated by sense perceptions of the conversation of others. B. By some device such as the changing of thy ring from one finger to another, create thyself 2 personalities, the thoughts of one being within entirely different limits from that of the other, the common ground being the necessities of life, of thine own ingenium, devise others. So this is a crazy one. Invent a different persona inside your brain. On each occasion thou art betrayed into thinking that thou art sworn to avoid, cut thyself sharply upon the wrist or forearm with the razor, even as thou should beat a disobedient dog. Feareth not the ox, the goad of the plowman. Thine arm then serveth thee both as a warning and for a record. Thou shalt write down thy daily progress in these practices, and thou art perfectly vigilant at all times over the least thought that arisen in thy brain. Thus bind myself, and thou shalt be forever free.
On this month's exclusive Order of the Fellowcraft episode.
This Halloween, we are summoning the rider on the red horse. I evoke the bornless one, the that didst create the earth and the heavens, thee that didst create the night and the day, thee that didst create the darkness and the light. Thou art Os Oron O Ferris, whom no man has seen at any time. Thou art Jabas, and thou art Japus. Thou hast distinguished between the just and the unjust, and thou didst make the female and the male. And thou didst produce the seed and the fruit, and thou didst form men to love one another and to hate one another. A high ritual from the Lesser Key of Solomon.
Learn more at Abracast.com. Learn more at Abracast.com. Get bonus content and access to the private Abracast workgroup by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that, plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at Patreon.com or Subscribestar.com.
Take your mind off of what you're worried about and onto the pain. Okay, here we go. I don't like doing this because when I tried it for practice, it hurt like hell. I'm going to try it again. Ow. So here we go again. That hurt. Ow. Okay, that stung.
Ready? Really bad.
Go for it. Stretch out.
Hold on, wait. God. Further, all the way to...
Dude, wait, we gotta do it like
Wait, don't look.
Ready?
Action.
Okay, well, this is finale. We have a lot, and this one has nothing on it. It's just a plain rubber band. Here we go.
Wait, what? Go, wait.
Oh, freaking shit.
Let me see. Automatic red mark. Automatic red mark.
Actually, I really don't. You tell me when to stop, bro.
Chad, walk backwards. Chad, walk backwards.
Stop.
Hey, go!
Do it.
Shit! That was a terrible idea.
Started recording.
Ready?
Not all the way.
You ready?
I don't see your hand.
Got his back?
Yeah.
Did you get it?
Test you.
Watch me like touch. Watch me.
Are you recording yet?
Yes.
Oh God.
Ow!
See? Straight on my face.
Flick myself with a rubber band for other people's amusement.
You recording?
Action!
Oh, wonderful. Hey, he's recording.
Alright.
Come on! Do it!
Damn. Oh my. Jesus.
That hurts even more.
Positive. You ready?
No! No! Fuck!
So out of these three books, Liber 1, Liber 1 has the most to say, right? But it's the one that's not plain. You know, so in Liber 1, Crowley is sort of describing what this Magus is. I think the point of this is this Magus needs to separate himself from everything by binding himself to everything. Wow. I guess that sounds pretty esoteric, but there are some practical things in here too. Crowley says to speak truth. He talks about the importance of words and of speech and of writing, which is basically literally what this podcast has turned into. The importance of reading and writing. He talks about the 4 weapons of the Magus, and we know these well. Check out our many episodes on the tarot. We have a feature topic link on the website, abracast.com. Go to the feature topic link. So the 4 weapons he creates with the wand, which we know is masculine, it's fatherly, it's kingly, it's the symbol of the tarot. It's like so we have to imagine it as like a clock face, or we'll do a compass. It's at the north. The wand is at the north position. He preserveth with the cup, which would be at the eastern spot. It's the female, the queenly, the motherly symbol. With the dagger, he destroys, and this would be the sword of the tarot, and it's at the southern position. It's the knightly symbol, which is like the sum of the combined king and queen symbol. And then finally, the coin. This is interesting. In Crowley's tarot deck, the Thoth deck, he calls them the discs. Most of the time, they're called pentacles. And in my tarot deck that I am designing, they are called the coins. You get a sneak peek of those cards if you join the Figura Correspondentia. That's just my fancy name for the mailing list. If you go on to Abracast.com and sign into the mailing list, you get access to the Figura Correspondentia side of the website. It's like kind of like a secret side of the website. And but you could get a glimpse of all the cards that I have done there. But I'm basically writing or compiling a whole book about the tarot on the Slack work group, which you can also get access to by signing into the mailing list or joining the degree of the Figura Correspondentia. Anyhow, okay, with the coin, he redeems. And we know through our readings of Pappas and Wade and McGregor Mathers that the coins are the transitionary suit of the tarot. And they are at like the 3 o'clock position or at the east point of the compass. I think I said the cups were at the east. Cups are at the west, obviously. Ugh. Drunk. All right. Again, I get into a ton of detail in those tarot card episodes. If you're interested in that stuff, hit the feature topic link, please. Crowley goes on to say some stuff about the position of the Magus here. Not like the position in the compass or on the clock face, but like this, his status, like his job. He says being a Magus is a curse. Being a Magus is a burden. And he warns the Maguses out there. I presume the person reading this, to who would become a Magus, he warns them against inaction. He says he must speak the truth, and that falsehood thereof may enslave the souls of men. I think this is terribly important. This is talking about gossip, right? Like, this is like gossip and like talking shit. And a lot of people are down on, I haven't done a Mason episode in a real long time, but this is like also what I see in the Masons is like, if you can't hold your tongue against the silly things we do here in the lodge, then how can I trust you on important stuff? You know what I mean? It's like it's not like you're telling a lie, but it's like you gotta keep this silly stuff to yourself. so I know that I can trust you in the real world. I think this is super interesting. He must speak truth, that the falsehood thereof may enslave the souls of men. He winds Liber 1 down by talking about dichotomy. He is saying sorrow is joy, and change is stability, and selflessness is self. It's both like the positive and the negative are equal. And that is a powerful message about weathering bad times and enjoying good times. At least that's how I'm reading this right now, you know. And the end of this book is great. He says, and woe, 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 yea, woe, and again, woe, 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 unto 7 times be his that preacheth not his law to men. So Crowley knew Nietzsche. Crowley actually said Nietzsche was a prophet of the coming Thelema. And like Nietzsche's whole thing was like, well, I'm beyond morality, right? We're beyond morality. What happens to the Western world when morality is shaken by the death of God? From what I've gathered from my Wednesday book club of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, this is what Nietzsche was worried about. He was worried about a time when men would make their own morals. And I find this interesting that he's like, hey, you know, in this coming world where everyone makes their own moral code, you have to preach it. Because woe unto 7 times be his that preacheth not his law to men. And he goes forward and he says, and woe also be unto him that refuseth to curse the grade of the Magus and the burden of the attainment thereof. So ultimately this book is awesome. And I think its message is about, you know, it's everyone's responsibility to become this Magus, like this master of his own destiny, like this fucking wizard that can speak his own reality and create and preserve and destroy and redeem within this world that he creates by speaking the truth, you know, without fear. And it is interesting. Anyhow, you know, when you read Liber 1, Liber 2, and Liber 3, Liber 1 is the head scratcher, you know, but when you get into it, it's like, whoa, it's pretty profound with how plain the other 2 are. And we'll get into them in a second. Liber 2. The Master Therion speaks pretty plainly here. He's just tightening up the whole do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law thing. And he gets right to it here, right in the beginning. From these considerations, it should be clear that do what thou wilt doesn't mean do what you like. It is the apotheosis of freedom. But it is also the strictest possible bond. Do what thou wilt is the apotheosis of freedom. It is turning your freedom into your God, but not in a sloppy sort of middle school boy sort of way, but it's instead a sharp and focused sort of way. Another concept that he blows through here is he says, quote, will must not be 2 but 1, unquote. And he will go on in the next book to illustrate this as the 3 beasts driven by 1 whip. Liber 3. So I mentioned that I did the Liber 3 challenge a year or two ago. I don't know. I did the knife thing that he talks about here, and it was a little drastic, but this thing works. I transitioned into the much cleaner, less crazy, less eyebrow raising rubber band method, nowadays. Well, between all the Wednesday book clubs, all this Overman, Nietzsche, Will to Power stuff, and revisiting these 3 Crowley books over the last couple months, I've lost a lot of weight. I lost a lot of weight, and I actually just got out of my first 48-hour fast. What?
Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.